Shades of Green on KDWN 720. I'm your host, Paul Ira, and we're in studio with Chef Adam Kas. Good morning again, Chef.
Good morning.
I was intrigued during the break. We were talking about how were you inspired to start cooking, and of course I read your website and looked at some of your background. So tell us a little bit about how you were inspired to start cooking and at such a young age.
Yeah, so there's two main influences with getting into food, nutrition, cooking. So first part of the story is that it's a little bit sad, but my mom passed when I was 10, and that had a very powerful impact, needless to say, on me in terms of a lot of things in my life. Two of those were I was very close to my grandma, and she was an incredible cook. Every Friday night we were at her house, even when my mom was alive, and we would have dinner at her house, and I'd sit in the kitchen with her. And I wasn't watching her cook so much as I was playing around and making like bread and then making people try it and making marshmallow men on sticks. But we were, you're always being absorbed to things, and you do kind of absorb some things by osmosis and just the exposure. But then of course she was just this amazing cook who, basically would make me whatever I wanted, but she was a gourmet, I call my style, one of the ways I describe it is gourmet nutrition. And so we were having, roast lamb, rack of lamb, filet mignon, roasted duck, everything. And she made these popovers, and everything was like, and my grandma also taught me about the basics of cooking, which is like one of the most important things that's hardest for most people is to get everything come out on time, done the right amount, and hot.
Right.
It's like, and especially when you have 5, 6, 7, whatever items all going on at the same time. So that was one side, that gourmet side. On the other side, after my mom passed, my dad got really into nutrition. And we were not an unhealthy family. Both my parents were very active. My mom was a championship tennis player. But this was 1991. And like till 1991 through 1994, like one of the things that my mom had left to my dad was he got, for his 40th birthday, he got our whole basement redone as a gym. So matted floors, mirrored walls, full machines, dumbbells like up to 120 pounds. And he got this trainer who he's still now, 26 years later, works out with every single week.
Really?
Awesome.
Your father works out every week with a trainer?
Oh yeah. Like multiple.
Where's he live?
He's in New Jersey.
Okay.
So he started bringing like nutrition products into the home, like metrics in like 1991, 1992 in these white boxes, and whole wheat pasta and like chopped up vegetables. And my friends would come over and be like, dude, your family is weird. And I was like, okay. But I got this appreciation. I also watched him get swole, right? Like, so he went from being like, fit guy, not overweight or anything, but he went being muscular in like a couple of years. Like really one summer, I remember I was at camp. So I wanted like the gourmet food of my grandma and the nutritional cuisine of my dad. And I started to like think about it more. And when I was 14, I was wrestling. And I went to my grandma and I said, Grandma, I need to eat healthier. At 14. and I said, can we make a turkey meat sauce?
You are weird.
I know, right? and well, yeah, for wrestling you have to make weight, but I still wanted to eat good. So I said, can we make, this was my idea, can we make a turkey meat sauce? Because I'd only ever had beef meat sauce.
Right.
And again, 14, I was 1996. So 95. So it wasn't like so ubiquitous then, where everybody's eating healthy, where all these clean, like now you have a healthy eating place on every corner. Right? This, like, I moved to Vegas 8 years ago. That didn't exist. There wasn't one single nutritional cuisine place like that in Vegas when I moved here. And now they're everywhere. I had my own spot here for a second, but I didn't want to do a restaurant. Not my bag.
Yeah, that's a lot of work, and it's 24/7 basically.
It's your life.
You're up early buying groceries.
I'd rather be here talking to you.
Working late, cleaning up, and yeah, I'm glad I don't own my own business. I've worked for someone else my whole life, so it's all good. Let's go back to some of the things I saw on your website and some of the issues you wanted to talk about. Macro to micro philosophy.
Sure. So we're jumping into the nutritional side here, right? So people ask me all the time about, how to approach nutrition, because we have to address a few things. First, like, unless you've been living under a rock, you've tried something. And I don't care how healthy or unhealthy you are, right? You can be the fittest person. You can be the like most unhealthy quote unquote person. You've tried something, right? There's been either a workout program or a diet program or some combination, or somebody told you something and you read an article on the internet and you're confused. Are eggs good for me? Are they not good for me? Should I eat eggs and coffee together? I'm just making things up here at like that point because we see all this stuff, right?
Yeah, I was intrigued when you talked the other night how you put those kind of things together. For example, this whole thing with super beets now. And the guy says, I love taking super beets, but I won't eat beets. And I was like, why? I love beets. I've barbecued them, I've boiled them, I've fried them, I've made them in lots of different ways with garlic, mash them up. But they're great. Why wouldn't you eat beets? So this kind of thing is always intriguing. And then the egg issue, and then
I'm just throwing the egg stuff out. Like I'm just trying to give like silly examples because there's everything you can like beets versus super. Like seriously. So and one of my favorite stories relating to food is another food kind of specialist that I follow. And he has this newsletter where he was talking about, he did this thing where he went to become a breatharian, a retreat, right? And he's like, I've had this hard relationship with food my whole life, and I'm going to go learn how not to eat and have all the energy and vitality I need. So he goes to this retreat, and like day 1, day 2, they're fasting so that it pumps up your adrenaline. Intermittent fasting is one of the big tips that I have for anyone who wants to change their relationship with health. Intermittent fasting is one of the most powerful things you can do. So
what's intermittent? How often?
Intermittent is 24 to 48 hour fasts.
How often?
It depends what you're trying to get out of it, but every 1 to 2 weeks. If you just do that once a week, you're going to be amped up.
24 hours once a week is a good
24 hours once a week. And we do a nutritionally supported cleanse with the system that I use. So, but anyway, he goes to do this breatharian thing. And basically, he's like, day 3 or day 4, he's there with his wife, and they're like, this is crazy. We got to get out of here. So they bounce, they hit the road, they stop at the first pizza place on the road. And they're leaving, and they hear like this ruffling in the bushes. They're like, what's that? And they go over and they look, and they like look beyond the bush, and there's the breatharian guru sitting in the bushes eating a pizza. So if it sounds too good, if it's like, look, you have to like it, right? You might not do one thing for the rest of your life, but when you talk to me about like what's the macro, one of my macro concepts, so a concept that is a belief that we can develop in ourselves, is that you have to like the way you're eating. If you don't like it, no amount of discipline, no amount of willpower will overcome it long term. And inevitably, everyone's had this experience, right? Where you're like, I'm doing it. And then you have a long day, you get tired, your mental state is shot, and then you go home and eat a bag of chips and a bucket of ice cream, right? So these are the patterns. So we have to learn to recognize these things and see that, like you said about sustainability, something is not sustainable in terms of an approach to eating. Now, we can do short-term things and have them in mind as short-term, where we maybe are saying, I'm going to do a 24-hour fast. Hard, but develops my discipline muscles as well. Develops my will, because willpower and discipline are like a muscle. One of the most influential books I've read that has a lot to do with food, actually, is called Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. It's by a psychologist and a researcher. And they study how willpower works. So everybody with food has had some experience where they're trying to eat a certain way or trying to do a certain workout routine, and their willpower gives out because you can't rely on willpower. And you were just saying about making, the most what's the most impactful thing somebody can take from this? The most impactful thing that I can share on this call is everything comes down to your energy. And I don't mean energy in some like foo-foo kind of new age kind of way. I mean like literally the state that you're in. You know if you're focused or not. You know where you are on a 0 to 10 on your focus. You know where you are 0 to 10 on your energy. And if you're like, oh, this is a 10, what does a 20 feel like? And if you can practice being at a 20, then a 10 feels like nothing. And that is directly related to how you eat. And that doesn't mean restricting yourself and not telling and saying, I can't have this, I can't have this. It's more look at it at 75 to 85%. If you hit that range, 75 to 85% of the way that is aligned with you feeling a certain way, the other 15 to 25, you can pretty much eat whatever you want and like, quote unquote, get away with it, depending on what goals you have right at that point, because you're in such a high energy state that you're making good decisions the rest of the time. So if you look at it like 75 to 85% of what you're eating affects how you're living 75 to 85% of the time, then you're constantly living at a heightened state, right?
That's great. That is wonderful. We're gonna talk some more about that. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back to Shades of Green and Chef Kas.